Hi, welcome to Jeremy's Tech Channel, and today we're going to check out the Budgie Desktop Environment in Solus. I keep getting introduced to new desktop environments and me getting curious, wanting to check some of these things out. And I'm also checking out and looking at rolling releases and how that works for different distributions. The developers of Solus also develop Budgie. Now, supposedly January of this past year, the main developer of Solus is moved away from developing Solus and solely focusing on Budgie. So there may be some departures at some point, but up to this point, for someone like myself, I really feel like it's a good place for me to see what the Budgie desktop environment's all about, because if it's developed and designed for this specific distribution, I should get a sense and a feel of how it's intended to be used and what it's about. So what we'll do is we'll move over to Wiki and website, just check out just a couple of things. And then we will go into a virtual machine where I've already got Solus installed so that we can specifically check out the Budgie desktop environment. So here is the Wiki page for the Budgie desktop environment. And it gave me some quick information that you should be aware of. It is developed using GNOME technology such as GTK. And a quick note, this is what I just mentioned. On January 1st, 2022, the lead developer of Budgie resigned from Solus and established a new organization for Budgie development with other active contributors. I take that as potentially growth, right? You've got so much needs for their operating system and their distribution, and also needs to develop the desktop environment. That's a positive in my book. And a couple quick notes about Solus. This is the Solus wiki page. Solus, previously known as Evolve OS, is an independently developed operating system. What I've read is it has a different package manager than what I am aware of. The package manager is EOPKG, and I know very little about it, okay? But this has what they describe as a semi-rolling release model, which is what piqued my interest. Is with new package updates, they get released every week. So they say here every Friday. And then specifically about Solus on their website, it looks like they are trying to give a great all-round experience. At least that's my read of this. And you see, for home or office, for content creators, and some of these like Synfig Studio and MuseScore are very audio specific and music creation software, and then things you might know a little more: GIMP, Inkscape, and then Kdenlive Shotcut for example. And then they even have for gamers here. They have some specific things that they have set up for gamers. Like that. When you go to Solus, and after we go through the desktop environment, if you don't like the desktop environment, they have some other choices here that you can use. And they've got Solus Budgie, Solus GNOME, Solus Mate, and Solus Plasma. So, pretty cool. Another thing that I quickly checked on when I was here, there's this Technologies button. I went over here and see what their projects are. So you see that they've developed some specific things, not only for the Budgie desktop environment, but they have the brisk menu for the Mate desktop. Obviously the Budgie desktop. Duflicky, a Linux driver management tool, a Linux Steam integration tool, some more Mate development, FairyD, which is the binary repository manager for Solus. Very cool. Some things here that they have, and then what they are built off of: free desktop, GNOME, the GNU project, Git, Linux, Mate desktop environment, Xorg project, X11. Okay, just want to show that quickly. So as we're hyper focused on the actual desktop environment, I do want to highlight Solus because essentially this desktop environment is their baby. It was developed with them in mind. And so because of that, I wanted to highlight that a little bit. So we'll take a look at the Software Center. So this is the Budgie desktop environment as Solus sees it laid out. And it is very familiar, very simple, very clean. Even the desktop wallpaper is simplistic with a beautiful aesthetic that I really do like. You'll notice that they do have some icons here set up for the desktop. You have your home folder and you have your trash bin. I would like to see, all right, this is based off of Nautilus, and what I'm already noticing are these tabs right here in this pop-up window for the About and giving credits. This is a nice clean way. I don't know if you can see the animation that is popping up with this. I think it's pretty slick. It looks really nice and clean. Nautilus is a great file manager, and you can see how they've laid it out. The rounded corners on the ends of what is highlighted is a nice detail that I like. So if I were to click in the next section here, I'm in the home folder, and if I were to click on the downloads, you can see how the files will break down. So if you need to go back and drill back a little bit in your file structure, you just click that and you're done. Right-clicking gives you a new folder action within Nautilus. Select all, open in terminal, and properties. Here we go again with our tabbed communication, which I find nice, clean, and simple. Keeps things from having too much information. Organizing your files right here. Now remember, we're doing a more direct look at the Budgie Desktop environment, so maybe some of these detail pieces I may not normally look at on a walkthrough with you. I might be highlighting a little more because I am really interested in this Budgie Desktop environment. So we can increase the sizes here. If I wanted to make this full screen and I wanted to make these icons, looks like you can make it up to 133% of what they originally, I think it was actually set at 50% when we opened this up, but you can make them nice and big if that's what you need. Reorganize them by the last modified, their size, their type. This is great. You also have a reorganization button here, show grid and show list. Two major ways to look at your files, and they are set up and laid out simply. Guys, that kind of detail is so nice. Now I'm going to right click on the desktop and see what I get. I get a Budgie desktop specific settings and I get a system settings. Let's start with the Budgie desktop settings. Now the theme of the highlighted menu, the highlighted item on the left hand side, you can see how they, as I'm putting my mouse over each item, it is squared off at the end, but the one that's selected has a rounded end. And I know that's a small detail, but that is a nice detail. So we have this panel here. It's labeled the bottom panel. We have these items that can be reorganized, and we can add some things to it. Some of these things you're already regularly used to, such as a menu and an icon task list is what they're calling this down here on the bottom left. And I don't know if you see the blue notification bell on the bottom, but now it is on the other side of the system tray. You can see now it's on the other side of the status indicator with sound, the power. Now it'll go on the clock. And if I just didn't want that to be there, I could click this trash button here and completely get rid of it. Settings. Position. Do I want to position at the bottom, left, right, or the top? Me putting it at the top means that it looks like I'm going to have to reposition this icon here on my desktop. Let's see if we can get that addressed. When in dock mode, the panels will be used minimal amount of space. Okay, let's see what this does. Oh, check it out. Actually, I like that a little more, and I'm going to put it back at the bottom. And we're going to make it transparent because that's what I like. Let's add an applet and see what is available. Caffeine, that is a way to keep your screen from going to sleep. if you want to have that set and be able to keep it from going to your screen from going to sleep with certain situations, like maybe you're working on something specifically, but you need to walk away for 10 minutes and you don't want the screen to go to sleep. That's what that's for. Let's see, you got night light, places, spacer, status indicator, user indicator, workspace switcher. Let's add a workspace switcher. Add applet. And it has put it right here with these workspaces. If I were going to use this, I would not do the way that I have this set up now. Actually, Jeremy, we can also create a new panel. And this panel goes up to the top. This bottom, what's labeled bottom dot. Can I right click and rename this? Doesn't look like I can rename it, which is a little annoying. But if I wanted to add that workspaces switcher, add applet, and I put it up here, you can add a workspace right here. That's great. If I wanted to add a spacer, let's add no, there's a separator. There's a spacer. Let's add, and I want to move this spacer up, and I can make the spacer whatever size I want it to be. And you may have to add a couple of spacers to get this where you might want this. Now, I am completely removing the aesthetic of this. So I am going to remove panel, and I am going to remove this from dock mode, and I'm going to make this the way it probably should be. And I'm going to put this over here because that makes sense to me. So a lot of configuration just with the panel alone. I do wish I could set the amount of transparency. That would make me kind of happy. But that's a small thing. Now we've got some desktop settings here with the actual layout of the windows. Show all windows and tab switcher. Disable unredirection of windows. It says this option is for advanced users. Okay. Enable window focus change on mouse enter and leave. Enables window focus to apply when the mouse enters the window and unfocus when it leaves the window. So you see that. And now when I disable it, that's not happening. That's great if you have a lot of windows floating around. Center new window on screen. Now that's nice. So if I were to bring up a new file window, well, it's kind of easy to do when you have it set to. So it just centered it right there. That's a nice little detail. So you can change the button layout right here, right or left. What makes you more comfortable to be on the right or the left? That is very nice. I needed to move myself in a really awkward place because I need to show you real quick the Raven panel over here. Raven is a notification center that gives you some configurability with some applets and specific notifications. You can see your calendar is laid out here. It's also very easily set. Set Raven position. You can always have it come from the left or the right if you choose. Yeah, so at the bottom right-hand side here, when I add it, you will see some other icons at the bottom of this. So I clicked it on, and now you have some settings, lock screen, and log out. Very cool. Nice. So this is a quick way to access sound. I don't know. They have some of this laid out very well down at the bottom, like your sound with the settings situation right here, which is great, by the way. This was set up very well. So I don't know why I would want that on this notification panel here, but it does consolidate all of that information on one side of your desktop, which is actually quite nice. So here, when you click the calendar, this is their calendar application. It's set up like most applications. You can set up your online accounts here. tie in your Google Calendar, Nextcloud, Facebook, all of that. It looks like it's an overall login for online accounts that is available when you click on that. So adding an event quickly in this calendar is very similar to everything else you use when it comes to calendars. This calendar looks like a GNOME calendar, and I believe these are some of the pieces that are going to be walked away from as they continue to develop the Budgie Desktop environment. But this calendar is something you are probably familiar with. Adding an event. Jeremy's crazy. Now my event is created. And there's also quick shorts for there. I am not doing a full walkthrough of a calendar application, but you should know that it's here and how it's generally laid out. This is where you can select your fonts. Some people are very particular with fonts, and some people are not. So now you know exactly where that is dealt with. You can set up your virtual desktops, is what they're calling it. I'm used to calling it Workspaces, but that is it. Now, check this out with this little applet they have here. This is showing an application open. I'm going to go ahead and open files as well. If I want to move over files to this next workspace or virtual desktop, it's there. And there is a nice animation going from one desktop to another that is great. I like that little feature here to be able to move it just within this applet, your application that you're using, if you want to spread out and use multiple virtual desktops the way they have it labeled here. Oh, active mounts, show active mounts on the desktop, show home directory on the desktop. No, thank you. Show the trash on the desktop. No, thank you. If you need to remove that, that is there. If you want to change the size of those, so we have that here. I want to make this massive. Here you go. You can make it massive. But for now, we are going to remove it. So you can change the style of the widgets and the icons and the cursors, and if it's dark theme or not. And if there's applications there. You also can choose what gets auto-started from here if you want to ensure that that one application gets started as you boot up your machine. That is here. All right, that was the Budgie desktop settings. Now, if I click the system settings, we have a familiar layout for our menu for settings. This little button up here, keyboard shortcuts, gives you some general shortcuts that you have. Control Q for quit, Control S for search, Escape for cancel search, and go back to previous panel. Great. This visualization for being able to search popped up right here. You hit Control S, it goes away. Now I can also click that, but that's an option. All right, Control S, I like that. Network settings, Bluetooth, background. These look beautiful. These look beautiful and simple. You just select it and then it gets changed. You don't have to click apply or any of that. It just changes it, which is nice. All right. If you need to add a picture that you want to add for background, this button is here. And guess what? You go to your pictures folder and you select a picture. How you want your notifications to look and do not disturb is labeled here, and what applications can give you notifications. When you're running a search, do you not want it to search the calculator? You can turn that off. And it looks like when you run the search, what information comes up to you first? Do you want what you're searching for, the results to come first from the files, and then the calculator, and then the calendar, and then the password and keys? I don't see a direct search to web, but how hard is it to open up a web browser and search from there? Now, these are application specific. So if there's some specific settings for Firefox or GNOME MPV or Gparted or your help. Remember, this is settings for those applications, not those applications specifically. Just gives you how it's integrated into the settings. Your privacy. So right now it's letting me know no application has camera access. It has to ask for access to the camera or the microphone. And your Thunderbolt port. On my virtual machine, I do not have a Thunderbolt port set up, but on my actual hardware, I do have a Thunderbolt port. So that's a nice thing to see. How you want file history and trash to be handled, and your screen lock. Okay. We already looked at the online accounts, your sharing, sound, power, displays. Very regular things. Now, this is where you can select your default applications. Let's say you have multiple web browsers or multiple mail clients or multiple music players. This is where you will choose that. All right. Another way to access the date and time. And here is our about. This is Solus. And it looks like this is Solus 4.3 Fortitude with a GNOME version of 40.2. Remember, there's a lot of things that were built with GNOME, and that is being moved away from, but that is still a part of this today. There also is a easy click to the software updates. We are going to go ahead and access this software center. Here are the available updates. These updates are mandatory and will be selected automatically. Okay. A lot of updates. That's a lot of updates. But you can see that there. Here is their software center, desktop software and theming. So if you wanted to change your desktop to GNOME or Mate, you can do that there. Multimedia and graphics, they have this broken down a little more. And if you know what you're looking for specifically, you can search for it. So if I search Kdenlive, here it is. And I can install it here. There is a third-party menu on this left-hand side, which includes Android Studio, Bitwig Studio, which is a music production suite, a different password manager. This is where you can get Google Chrome if you would like to get Google Chrome, Skype, Spotify. You can kind of get a sense of what this third-party group of applications is for. TeamViewer, there you go. The menu down here on the bottom left is, I know you're shocked, nice and clean. This is very easy to navigate. Those system settings that were right here is now broken down for you right here in this menu as well. So you can quickly go to power management from here. Now it's just essentially a shortcut to the system settings, but that is nice. You have some utilities here that are great. So let's look at the system monitor and see what we've got going on. This has got 973 megabytes on 16 gigabytes of RAM that I have assigned to this machine. I also have 8 cores, and they are purring along as if nothing has ever happened. Color. You can calibrate your monitor right here. Okay, so this desktop environment is outstanding. The Budgie Desktop Environment that we just experienced, what we just learned is that it is laid out nice and simple, really for people who like a nice, clean, flat aesthetic with simple tools to get to where you need to go. Some little detail pieces that I found really nice is where they didn't want to put too much information on one screen, like on the About, when you would click on the About for an application, there was some tabbed elements that you could click and it would feed you more information. The Raven notification that pops in from the right hand side was a nice addition and reminded me of my Mac days. The menu was nice and clean, and Solus, as it stands, has some wonderful layouts here. And if I install and do a review of Solus, one of the pieces I will be very interested in is that rolling release schedule. It's not a true rolling release like an Arch system where, package gets updated and it gets sent out. This looks like they kind of hold back anything for a once a week rollout on Fridays is what it says. But this is exciting development. It's also exciting to see how the Budgie desktop environment is, and I'm excited to see where it goes once it completely removes itself from GNOME. I probably won't use it until that point for that very reason, just because I'm curious to see if it takes a major change and shift or if it kind of sits where it is. It's probably going to sit with the same vision, if you will, that it has now, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm going to wait personally, but this is definitely a desktop environment that I'm considering switching to. I love KDE and all that it offers. That's what I'm currently using with my Endeavor OS system, but I keep hearkening to my Mac roots and some more simplicity in the menu. And it's very evident to me, although I can have things workflow-wise laid out exactly as I want to, it may not be as aesthetic as I want it to be yet. Budgie desktop environment, really great. If you're looking for something like this really was attractive to you. There are multiple distributions besides Solus that use it. There's Ubuntu Budgie, there is one with Manjaro, there's one for Arch. There's plenty of choices if you want to use Budgie. If you want to use Solus and you liked the simplistic layout of everything here, but you didn't like the Budgie desktop environment, no problem. GNOME, Mate, you have those options for you. Thank you for joining me today. I had a lot of fun checking this out. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.